everyone, and welcome to the Youth for Youth podcast series by Mohanji Youth Club. I'm Anusha, and I'm joined by Mohnish, and we'll be hosting today's session to share a little background about our work. Through our MYC Crisis Management Project, we've been offering free disaster preparedness training and awareness to communities globally, focusing especially on kids, teens, youth groups, and underprivileged communities. Our key areas of work include natural disaster, man made crisis, and mental health. We started this project about 10 months ago, and as we progressed, we noticed that while many programs focus on training, they often overlook something very critical: how people stay calm before, during, and after crisis, process what they got through, and support each other emotionally during and after a crisis. So we began to approach our work in three ways: training, expression, and emotional resilience, covering it in a more holistic way. And from this, we developed a few key initiatives. You Lead is one of them, which focuses on disaster preparedness and awareness training for educational institutions or communities. Second is Stability and Survival Stories, a platform where young people can share their experiences of crisis and how they overcame it either through creative art or any form of non-violent expression. And Mauna is a weekly meetup, both online or offline, that helps individuals come together, connect in silence, and release stress and fear, detox the mind, and eventually help respond with greater calm and clarity. And through all of this, one thing was very clear to us: that while working with the communities, there's a much larger and higher conversation happening globally around disaster risk reduction, youth engagement. And here we have with our guest, Erwin, and we are glad to be joined by him. Mohnish, please go ahead and introduce our guest, Erwin.
Today, we have the privilege of sitting down with someone who has been living that truth on the ground. Joining us is Erwin Mahendra Eka Saputra, a 25-year-old youth advocate from Indonesia with over 3 years of experience in the humanitarian sector. Erwin is the founder of the school-based disaster preparedness program in Bandung City, a grassroots initiative bringing disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, and emergency response skills directly into schools and communities. His program has already reached 9 schools and 1 village, transforming many lives. What sets Erwin apart is his rootedness. He understands that resilience isn't built in boardrooms, it's built in classrooms, in neighborhoods, in the quiet trust between a young leader and the community that believes in them. Erwin, on behalf of the entire MYC Crisis Management team, welcome to the Youth for Youth podcast. We are so glad to have you here. Firstly, we would like to begin by asking you that you started working in disaster preparedness at a very young age, at just 22. What was the moment or the crisis that made you say, I need to do something about this? What lit that fire in you?
Okay, thank you, Mohanis and also Anusa. So basically, I will throw back at the end of 2022 when I was in first my mission in humanitarian action. So at the time, I was deployed in emergency response of landslide and also flash flood in Lebak, Banten in West Java. So basically, at that time, I and the team conducting mental health and social services to the affected community. And then at the session, I was impressed when a child gave me a drawing the result from the MHPSS activities, And then she draw about a school and then a broken bridge that connected a village to her school. And then at the drawing, she said that I want to go to school, but now I can't because of the bridge was broken. And then she and her friends can go to school. So after that, I discussed with my friends about the result of the services. I think it's very important to establish a initiative that how to strengthen the school resilience in pre-disaster, during, and after disaster. So after that, we discuss, and also basically in my village, there is a fault, namely Lembang fault. And if it's moved, it can be cause a earthquake around 6 until 7 magnitude. So basically, that's moment that inspire us to conducting an initiative about the school-based earthquake preparedness, because at the time we just focus on how a student can evacuate and also well educate about the earthquake, especially in my hometown. So I think that's the moment how I begin the journey about the Safe School program.
That's really nice, Erwin. I think what you've done is really inspiring as a young mind, and I feel like many young people of today feel like they are waiting for a seat at the table for humanitarian work, but you went ahead, did it, and built it on your own. How did you create this at as such a young person in spaces often led by adults and institutions?
Yeah, uh, there is several things, yeah, that encourage me and my friends as well to be in humanitarian field, because of uh, especially in when I was in university, I love photograph, and then I often went to slum area in Bandung City, like uh, and then I took many of photograph. So basically, I love street photography. And then after I go to the field, at home I review the result of the image. And then at that time, I just thinking, what can I do instead of I just learning in the class. So at the time, I joined a like community in my university that focus on humanitarian action. So at organization, I met my senior, like who work in NGO, in the UN, and also they explain how the reality when you respond to the disaster as well. So that the reason that we go to the ground. And then yeah, sometimes when I met a lot of stakeholder in the field, I just like scared, and also it's like intimidating, because I often ask by them, how old are you? And then something else, oh, you are too young in this field. We can't trust you. But yeah, we just try. Sometimes we just falsifying our age when in the coordination meeting in humanitarian field to make sure that they believe us. So that's I think that was not correct, yeah, because as young people we need to be authentic. But yeah, in Indonesia culture, age is one of consideration if your voice will be considered or heard by the decision maker. Yeah, I think best. And then I was joined like another network that established by the NGO that focus how to increase the young people capacity, especially in humanitarian action. And then I think by join those network, it saved my mindset. Instead of I need to prove that I knew everything, I focus on being someone who willing to learn, listen, and to act. So yeah, I think that was definitely moment when I was not taking seriously, but I realized credibility doesn't come from your age. It comes from the consistency and showing up again and again from actual doing work on the ground. So basically, I think like stakeholders or adult and also senior humanitarian should consider the voice of young people because I saw that the reality, most of young people with diverse background with the university and then community, it's most of the resources, the big resources when disaster hits. For example, based on my experience, 2 years ago when we responding an earthquake in Cianjur, there were like around 1,000 until 2,000 young people that involved in that response. So, but on the other hand, sometimes they didn't know like the full of cycle humanitarian action that we should consider to be part of coordination meeting. We should consider what kind of aid that we should deliver to the affected community, and as well as about the standard like spear standard or etc. So I think yeah, that's the reason why young people is very important, yeah, in humanitarian space. But also adult and also senior humanitarian team also should consideration the voice of young people on the ground because yeah, they are also the big resources to help the affected community on the ground. Yeah, I think that's my experience about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as you said, credibility comes from consistency. And we really agree completely on this line. That's really amazing, Edwin.
That's absolutely right, Erwin. When we started this program, we also faced some this kind of issues in India. We were all
Mm,
here for an event in India, and there was a huge gathering. So there were a lot of incidents of fire, of
mm,
this mob stampedes. So, and we started as five young people when this team was made, and we had no background in disaster preparedness, but definitely we took help of our seniors, we took help of a community
mm,
of experts, and then they trained us in different topics from disaster, like natural disasters, man-made conflicts, and even we included some psychologists for psychological
mm,
resilience. And we also face the same challenges of credibility because yes, it's I think it's not only in India, in Indonesia,
mm.
I think globally also it's
Yeah.
difficult to for young people to get credibility in basically in disaster preparedness. But by seeing our work, they slowly connected with us, and now they are like supporting us to become young leaders. And
Mm,
similarly, your program has also reached 9 schools. Like you have also created a lot of impact. You have reached 9 schools. You have reached a village and 4 disaster preparedness communities in Bandung
mm.
city. Can you walk us through like how does your program actually look on the ground? What does a school community look before the program is done, and what does it look after that?
Yeah, it's very interesting because at the first, the program is only about the education. Like we just went to school and then socialize and educate the students about the earthquake and also how to evacuate if the earthquake occur. But by the time like our team member also provided capacity building opportunity from the university and others organization. So based on the learning of each member, we trying to develop more comprehensive safe school program, not only specifically in earthquake hazard, but another hazard like flood and also climate change as well. So by the time we move, instead of just educating the children, we move to have a like more comprehensive framework that we also focus on the how to increase the capacity of teacher and also the headmaster about the disaster management at school level. And also the third is more comprehensive about the climate change education as well as the disaster preparedness. So basically, our framework is like we establish a cascade training that we equip the children about the disaster preparedness and then climate change education, and then we provided like uh, seed grant to ensure that they can establish an activity with their peers to increase the awareness about climate change and disaster preparedness at their school. And then the second one is we also train the teacher and establish like a disaster management team at school level that engage a student, parents, and also the teacher. So not only that, we also focus on supporting like mitigation infrastructure, like evacuation route and also the assembly point. So basically, we also establish like evacuation route that we use participatory approach with the children, and then we identify where is the location most high risk if the disaster occur at school. And then we also decided with the students the best way of the evacuation route at the school. So after that, like we conducting like a simulation of the earthquake and other specific hazard based on the school location. Yeah, that's kind of our program. But what I see the difference when we conducting the program last year, for example, like basically there are monitoring tools from the Ministry of Education that we can assess how safe is the school if disaster occur. So basically there are three indicator of that assessment tools, but we only focus on the school disaster management, and the third is the disaster preparedness education. But one of the my favorite change when the school can pledge budget from their own resources to establish an activity about disaster preparedness, because sometimes most of the teacher and school leader is not aware about the disaster preparedness activity. They often wait from the third party to come to their school to conducting like disaster preparedness activity. But by advocating the school budget, they can establish their own disaster preparedness activity. Yeah, that's the change from the program uh, from the last year. And also we are trying to advocate the like uh like the I mean the regulation at the Regency level about safe school, as well as to establish like joint stakeholder committee about the safer school program to ensure that the education is still continue even in crisis situation. Yeah, I think that's the difference, yeah, before and after the program that we have conducting, and also the process how we scale up the content, and also the framework of the program.
Right. Um, I think we've also heard you say that you've done some work in climate crisis thing, right? So we are also seeing right now that climate change disasters coming to forefront, and the disasters are becoming more frequent and more unpredictable. So from what you've seen in Indonesia, how is that reality changing the way communities need to prepare, and is the world keeping up with it? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think climate change nowadays is very important to be embedded at school, yes, especially because for example, when I visit one of preschool, yeah, in North Jakarta, so I interview the teacher how was the climate change impact in the region. So she said like basically once in a year always occur flash flood in the North Jakarta, basically like coastal flood. But nowadays, the coastal flood is more frequent, often 3 until 4 times in a year. So that's the what happened about the climate change in my area as well as in Jakarta. So I asked her about what is the impact to the students. So it's very affected the learning outcome from the students because of they often absent to the school because of the the coastal flood is very frequent occur in that area. And also not only the student, the teacher also affecting by the coastal flood. And also it's like beside of the floods, the heat wave also affecting the class, like reduce the concentration of the students that they not comfortable sit on the class. So I think that's one of the evidence, yeah, how climate change education now is very important to be mainstream in education system, and also about the adaptation way. Really depend on the each area based on the climate risk. So I think, but sometimes when we conducting climate change education in our program, sometimes like it's very difficult to understand like the terminology about the climate change, like greenhouse gases and then carbon footprints. It's like very, because climate change is like kind of abstract issue that sometimes children or even adult is very difficult to understand that. So I think the global conversation sometimes is not touch the grassroots level. So based on that, so our role, especially young people, how we translate the complex terminology into like fun way and also easy to understand to the people on the grassroots. Like we consider this challenge that arise from the community. So we modify the training package to be more relevant and also experiential learning to make sure that the children have tangible and also know how is the process of the climate change with like scientific experiment, and then board games, and then another games that the result is children and the teacher more easy to understand about the climate change. And then one of the feedback that I still remember from the students, that she was realized uh, about the landslide that most occur in near of school, and then the floods is not only because of the natural, but it's also the impact from the climate change. Yeah, I think that's why is it very important to mainstream, yeah, the climate change issue uh, into school system and others community.
That's correct. Actually, we have also faced a similar kind of issues. So we also went to conduct these kind of trainings for earthquakes and cyclones in different schools. So it's very important to make the content more fun. So these are very complex topics like yeah, climate change and how it occurs. So we need to make it in a form of games, and what we generally do is we make it into role plays. So
Mm,
we give kids some situations, like suppose this earthquake has happened. Now what will you do? Why has it happened? We create different kind of scenarios. Suppose this case has happened. Now what will you do? And we try to integrate that
mm.
into learning. So I would like to ask you, how is the training conducted? Do you also integrate these kind of role plays? What kind of games are integrated? And yeah,
Yeah, basically like the example of the games, yeah, how to understand the greenhouse gases, for example. So we provided two glasses, and then we pour the water and the on those two glasses, and then one of the glasses is put the plastic on the lid of the glass, and then another one is open. So we conducting like an observation how was the greenhouse gases increase the temperature on Earth with the children. So we put the two glasses in the outdoor, and then after we wait until 10 minutes, we can saw, yeah, the difference between the two glasses. That one of the glasses that put plastic on the top of glass will be like there is a like I mean like a vapor or a different color, and then the other one is like nothing happened. So because it's a game like indicated about the greenhouse gases that occur from the carbon dioxide and also methane, it will increase and trap in the atmosphere, and the result will increase the temperature on Earth. And then the other one is like we conducting a role play to give a explanation how the climate change, how the history of the climate change occur on Earth. Yeah. So for example, it's like the game is about like we provided two team, and then one team is like will be greenhouse gases, and then the other will be like atmosphere, and then we conducting two scenario before the industrialization period, and then after industrialization period. So it's kind like before industrialization period, the atmosphere can catch the greenhouse gases, and then after that, more greenhouse gases can escape, yeah, to the atmosphere. So after that, we also provided like board game like Snake and Ladder, and then each move we will provide like a simple question about the climate change issue, and then the students need to answer that question. Yeah, I think that's kind like of a fun way, and also like experiential learning how to illustrate the climate change process. So after that, the students can more aware about the process of climate change. So after that, I think they will more aware about the impact of climate change, and also what they can do as children and young people to minimize the climate change both in mitigation and adaptation way. Yeah, I think that's the example, yeah, from our experience.
That sounds really fun because I remember in my school days, though we had this topic, but these were really boring, to be very honest.
Mm.
So it's if it's too tech, if it's too textbook, or if so, here there's a difference when young people get involved. So we can they could relate with us
Mm.
like older brothers or older sisters. And this is we also collected some feedbacks from these kind of
Mm.
schools. So however activities we plan, they would write in feedback, please plan more role plays, please plan more activities. So really nice. So why? So I would like to ask, whatever work you are doing in Bandung city, like creating all this creative activities,
Mm.
what would be your perspective to take it to a maybe a regional framework or a national policy that should be included so that it becomes more practical, it becomes more interesting for children also.
Yeah. So basically, beside of in the organization, I also join like kind of a youth network that also advocating about the this issue. Yeah. For example, like we often join like consultation that also some of ministry include the young people to give like input to the national policy like NDZ and other policy. Yeah, but our role is still on consultation process. But moreover, I hope we can, yeah, develop climate change education module, especially for the teacher. So the next steps, we hope we can uh, escalate or improve our program, not only targeted children, but also how we equip like a peer champion from the teacher to ensure the sustainability of the program. So it's like we train a master trainer at the province or regency level about the disaster preparedness and climate change education in a fun way. So they should disseminate it at school, and also how they disseminate the knowledge at the teacher community of practice in the province level, in regency level. So I think that will be like a sustainable way to ensure that the modules and the knowledge is rooted in the grassroots level. And also we hope like we can have an opportunity to make like a policy brief, and also contribute into the policymakers about the importance of the climate change education at the national level. Because if I'm not mistaken, in current our NDC, the education topic is not stated yet in that policy. So even though there is some progress like from the ministry already provided the guideline how to implement the climate change education at school, but sometimes most of teacher on the ground they didn't know yet about the guidelines, and it's very not applicable yet to school. Yeah, I think that we are hope to achieve, yeah, in the future about the how to improve the program. I think that's from my side.
Yeah, I think that's really wonderful, Edwin. And I think we've got to learn a lot. And, I think it's really inspiring for our audience also on how at such a young age you've been able to achieve, a lot of things. One thing which you'd like to tell every young person listening to you right now, we'd like you to maybe suggest something actionable to support themselves during crisis or their communities. What is that one thing? What would it be, according to you?
Okay, so I think especially for young people who wanted to join in this mission, yeah, especially in disaster preparedness as well as the humanitarian action. Uh, Based on my experience, my advice will first you need to learn more about this issue. It can be climate change, disaster, based on your local risk. And then the second one, you can join the network to ensure you will receive the capacity building, and also you will engage with your peer, because that's one of the media about a lot of resources and also another things. And the third is do what you can do to support the humanitarian crisis. If you can go to the field, you can organize like a donation or create like a simple poster about do and dance in the field. And then also you can join with the WhatsApp group in the cluster system. So if you can join to the ground, you can educate the actor at that group. So for the context in Indonesia, if there is a disaster occur, they have like a WhatsApp group for coordination cluster. You can join in that group. And also it's very important to shifting the way to ensure that increase the resilience of the community before the disaster, instead of we focus on responding the disaster. Yeah, I think that's all from my side.
That's really nice, Edwin. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Anusa and Mohanis, to give
Thank
me
you
an
so
opportunity
much,
to sharing.
Erwin. Thank you so much, Erwin. It was really inspiring. And you have done a lot of work through with the help of your seniors, your peers, and with the help of the network. And it's quite difficult if we do it alone as a
Mm,
young person. But with a community, we have also realized that with a community, we can do a lot more work. And it was really inspiring to hear about the games, the interactive activities. And we could work on this, like we can also share these kind of activities, the kind of role plays that you
mm,
do and the content that we have developed, so that it becomes more comprehensive, more useful. And thank you so much for joining and taking out your time and sharing your expertise with us. We definitely hope to connect with you more, and you also can connect with us if you have some ideas or would like to tell us about some efforts that are happening in
mm.
Indonesia, so that we can have a movement that could be global. Each country can inspire the other country. So
Looking forward to more collaborative efforts in the future.
Thank
Yeah,
you so much,
thank
Erwin.
you,
Nice to
Mohanis and
talk with
Anusa.
you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for the opportunity.